Hey there guys, welcome to another vlog. If you'll notice, I'm not in my usual backdrop, and that is because it is like 110 degrees out right now where I live, and my mom's room is the coolest room in the house with the fan and everything. So welcome to mom's room, I guess. I'm gonna try and speak loudly because I know the fan is on. That is to keep me from sweating and dripping during this video. So basically what we are going to talk about today is intuitive eating with an emphasis on breakfast. And if you haven't yet read my easy acronyms for intuitive eating part 1 and part 2, I would suggest that you start there. You can search for that on the blog, just search intuitive eating or acronym and it'll come up. That's going to give you a backdrop as to what intuitive eating is, which, I'll summarize really quickly. It's a natural and healthy relationship with food in which you eat based on your hunger cues. You follow your cravings, you listen to your body, and although it sounds really simple, and maybe it is for some people, for those of us who have experienced eating disorder in our past, it can be very difficult to reestablish those hunger cues and to trust your body and to just, eat some ice cream when you're craving ice cream and eat this breakfast if you think you should have more protein, if that's how you've been conditioned. So I'm going to talk some of those things today with, regards to breakfast. I kind of want to start by saying that I know there's a tendency in the eating disorder recovery community to struggle with breakfast in particular because there's kind of this whole stigma where breakfast can be skipped. I don't know when that started. I guess maybe when people were rushing to school or work and they just, forget to eat sometimes, but it's really not a good idea. I've never been someone who could skip breakfast. Even when I was struggling with anorexia, I always had to have something. And it really is important to set your day and begin your day with some energy. It sets the mood, it sets how you're going to feel and your attitude, and of course, power you through your morning and afternoon. So, that should just be a given that skipping breakfast is not a good idea. But what I want to dive a little deeper into today is not only, that it's important to eat breakfast, but what you're eating. So I'm going to talk about how I learned to eat intuitively for breakfast and what that looks like for me, and kind of walk you through some of the fears associated with, my relationship with food that I had to overcome. And hopefully it will help you and you can refer to it if you're struggling with some of the same things. So, bottom line, that, I was toying with putting this on Instagram and I decided to make it into a video because I had too much to say, is that if you follow me on Instagram, Healthy, Easy, Sweet, you'll notice that I eat some variation of the same thing every morning, unless I'm out of town or visiting friends or family, and that is toast. I will have some avocado on toast with egg, or peanut butter toast, or toast with avocado and turkey. I usually have avocado too, but there's always toast. And if there's not, then there's a corn tortilla, or there's some other substantial carb, or some rice. I don't have rice a lot with breakfast, or like some buckwheat, which I've been eating instead of oatmeal. Not that there's anything wrong with oatmeal, but as someone who's recently diagnosed with celiac disease, my nutritionist asked me to stay away from it, so that's another story. But also, I guess, to tie in real quick to the celiac disease, that's why you won't see me eating flour tortillas or bread at a restaurant. I know that some people have asked me, actually, is that part of my eating disorder, that I can't order sandwiches at restaurants? And it's not. It's just that a lot of places don't offer gluten-free bread, and I do have the autoimmune disease, not just, a gluten allergy or eating disorder, not letting me eat gluten. It's that I have the disease. So, beside the point, I always start my morning with something carby, something like bread, something like tortilla, and for me, that is because I can't digest dairy super early in the morning or first thing. After I have my coffee, I need something with substance in my stomach or I'll feel nauseous. And I have to tell you, it took me about 20 years to learn this, and a solid couple years of trying to go to the gym after having a yogurt and some fruit for breakfast. And it could be a completely healthy meal, like a yogurt parfait and some peanut butter. And that's a perfectly healthy meal by my standards, and a meal that I enjoy and that's not disordered. But I'm still not going to have it for breakfast because it just doesn't make me feel good. And that's why I want to tie this into intuitive eating, because intuitive eating is a process of listening to your body and finding out what makes you feel good and when. It's not just about what foods you can and can't have, Like for some people, dairy irritates their stomach, or even like certain vegetables or nuts. I keep using the dairy example. But, it's not just the food itself, but when you eat it sometimes. And that's the beautiful thing about intuitive eating, is that once you get in tune with your body, you figure out, okay, maybe I can't have dairy first thing in the morning, but my stomach doesn't hurt me if I have it at night. Things like that. And I'm talking from, a physical digestion point of view, not a mental point of view right now. Because one of the biggest things with intuitive eating that helped me, just changed my life, is that it alleviated so many of my digestive problems. I know a lot of you struggle with bloat, you struggle with abdominal pain, and aside from it being mentally difficult, body image-wise, it's painful, it's really uncomfortable. So I'm giving you the example of me having toast in the morning for breakfast or some kind of carb, some corn tortilla, because that's one thing that was a game changer for me. Once I started doing that, I noticed immediately that I had better, or I should say less stomach pain throughout the day. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you why that is. Only that it was groundbreaking for me to realize it and kind of just respect that about my body and give myself permission to do so. Because I know there are diets out there and probably Fitspos out there that you watch that would say, no, you should have a high protein breakfast or a low carb breakfast before your workout on your rest day. And you already know I don't buy into diets, but it's hard with messages out there. And one of the most difficult, fear food things for me to overcome was realizing, okay, high carb, fatty breakfasts make me feel better first thing in the morning. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that I can't have carbs later in the day. It doesn't mean that I need to try and limit X macro for, however long. It's just what makes my body feel good. And even though that is a simple statement, I know how much I struggled with it and how much some of you probably do too. So I'm here to tell you that it's okay if you don't want to have a high protein breakfast. It's okay if protein powders early in the morning hurt your stomach. Maybe they don't later in the day, maybe they do. It's all, trial and error, which is difficult and it's time consuming and it's frustrating. But the good news is you have your whole life to figure out what makes you feel good. And there's no wrong answers. Unless you have an allergy or something that, you really are not allowed to have that's harmful to your body, like for me, that's gluten, then yeah, you have to work around those parameters. But aside from that, intuitive eating is about allowing you to feel your best and giving you the freedom to do so. I can't really stress to you how great it feels to me to be able to wake up in the morning and eat peanut butter toast for breakfast. Because there's not a lot of protein in that as opposed to a protein shake or egg whites or things like that. But I don't really care anymore. I don't count macronutrients, I don't count calories, and breakfast was one of the biggest struggles for me to stop doing that because it's the first meal of your day. And when I was in my disorder, it would kind of set the tone for how many calories I could have for the rest of the day or what I could eat based on what I had for breakfast. And I'm just not in the business of doing that anymore, and it feels great. And I know that some of you are watching this and thinking that that's impossible. You're never going to be free of that voice in your head from needing to count calories, from needing your plate to consist of X amount of protein, X amount of carbs and vegetables. But it's just not true. It's possible for you. It's possible for everyone. And I know that because I used to think it wasn't as well. And I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent again, but I just can't stress enough that real recovery is possible. So if you take anything away from this intuitive eating video, it's that you should fuel yourself with what makes you feel good for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast in particular is important to have a meal that is going to sustain you whether you're exercising that day or not. You should always have something and play around with it. Play around with what makes you feel good first thing in the morning, what makes your stomach not have pain. And I promise you will find a combination that works for you, and you can switch it up and you can keep it the same. And that's what intuitive eating is about, finding out what makes you feel good. I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you guys soon.